We try to post about 2 to 3 times a week. The initial post tends to sort of introduce the topic and talk about what the challenges are. And then the subsequent posts that week talk more about the challenges and how you can do it, give further information. Sometimes in the past, and we'll probably do this again, we've tried to do some videos as well for people who prefer to sort of hear things so you can just click on it and listen as you're going about your day. It is an online challenge. There's no sign up. There's no necessarily reporting, although we love to have comments on the blog.
Kansas is a 4-season state. As a result, if you live in the state long enough, there's a good chance you'll experience some type of weather-related disaster, a severe thunderstorm, tornado, flood, heavy snow, blizzard, or ice storm. Unfortunately, natural disasters often cause power outages. Having a plan for what to do when the power goes out can keep you safe, prevent food loss, and reduce the risk of consuming contaminated food. On today's Sound Living, food safety before and after a disaster. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman. September is National Preparedness Month. In conjunction with that national event, K-State Research and Extension has its annual month-long online challenge to help people get prepared ahead of a disaster. The Challenge for Prepare Kansas 2019 focuses on knowing what to do when the power goes out to keep food from spoiling. K-State Research and Extension Family Resource Management Specialist Elizabeth Kish says the 4-week online challenge uses weekly themes to help people be ready in the event of a power outage. Elizabeth, Prepare Kansas runs throughout September, weekly themes, but the overall theme is more focused on food safety this year.
That's right. This is our 6th year, and every 3 years we rotate through each of the themes. And last year our focus was on knowing the kind of weather hazards that impact us in Kansas, and the year before that it was on financial preparedness. So this year we're focusing on food safety and knowing what to do to be safe. If your power goes out, how you can prepare for that. So we have these weekly themes related to food safety, and week 1 is what to do ahead of a power outage. Week 2 is what to do as the power outage happens, and then after a power outage. And then the final week in September, we'll focus on what to do after a flood. And certainly we have regular flooding in Kansas, so it's a very appropriate theme.
We've certainly seen that this year in particular statewide. We saw flooding problems.
Yeah.
In terms of what we can do then prior to a flood, what are some things that we should be thinking about?
So prior to a flood, first of all, regardless of what the weather hazard is, flood or anything, or even if the power may or may not go out, it's always important to have a kit. And so when you build this kit, you need to include food, water, and medical supplies for at least 3 days for everyone in the household, plus any household pets.
Because they're going to need water and food as well.
Right. And because we cannot, if it's, for example, a very severe event, there may be community, state, regional assistance coming in, but that takes time to muster. So you need to be prepared for yourself for at least 3 days is the recommendation.
Because you don't know when that help might arrive.
That's right. You don't know when the help will arrive. And even if it's sort of, shall we say, somewhat minor, the power goes out or the water is not drinkable for a few days, that's why you need to check your batteries, make sure your cell phone is charged, have maybe an external battery for your cell phone that's charged, your weather radio, all the things that you would need, and have a plan, obviously, for your family. What will you do in different events, as well as a communication plan so you can communicate with people within your community and outside your community. So that's, for any year, always the basics. And even if you have a kit, every year, at least once a year, it's good to check it over, make sure everything's good, rotate the food out, check the water, make sure you have all your first aid supplies in order, that none of those are expired, or maybe you use them for something. And just review with everyone in your family. Where's your kit? What's in it? That kind of thing. So then when the power actually goes out, think about what you might need to do to keep your food safe. And so if you know that a storm's coming, start freezing water. if you have a space, you probably might need to do that in a chest freezer, or, you can put it in your refrigerator freezer. So you have the water frozen so that can keep things cold, but then depending on how long the outage lasts, maybe you end up drinking it as well. And if you can, also freeze any leftover items that are in your refrigerator so that they have a better chance of surviving a power outage. And then know where you can get dry ice or block ice, because you can get that, put things in a cooler, put some food in there, and that also helps things stay fresh longer. And then obviously you need to have the coolers on hand to put the ice in.
Yeah, that's interesting because that's really kind of how they used to do it in the olden days, was just blocks of ice.
Yeah, that it is. Well, and when you think about it, when we lose power or water, we really are back into those days where we don't have those conveniences. So then in the event that the power goes out and it's out for an extended period and you have spoiled food, some homeowners or renters insurance may actually cover the cost of the loss of spoiled food.
Which can be significant.
It can be significant. I mean, just think about if you just butchered a calf or you just filled your freezer with meat for the winter or something. Yeah, that could be really significant. So what you need to do, though, well, first of all, check your homeowner's insurance. And I would say, or renter's insurance, I would say particularly to do that if you freeze or store a lot of food. But at this time of year, during Prepare Kansas, we always encourage people to review their insurance coverage anyway, but this is one specific coverage that you might want to review for. You will need to document things. So you'll need to document the cause of the power outage. And so that may determine whether or not things are covered. You need to know your limits and the deductibles of your policies. For example, if you have a $500 loss and the deductible was $250, what you would then be reimbursed for is the $250. But if you had a $500 deductible and the loss was only $250, for that event, you wouldn't be able to file a claim. And then obviously you have to document your losses. So if you're worried, if you have a full freezer and you think something might happen, take an inventory, take a picture. But you really need to ask your company ahead of time, your insurance company ahead of time, what are their requirements for documenting food loss as a result of a storm.
The other thing we're worried about is the food safety itself, making sure that the food is still safe to eat.
That's right. And this is where my food safety colleagues come in. And so we will have information on the blog about temperatures and how long things are likely to stay, shall we say, wholesome or safe when the power goes out and at what temperature.
Typically, it's not a long time, but you just don't know. And that's the reason that we need to be prepared for really any type of situation.
Right. And I would say, I think when the power goes out, sometimes our natural inclination is to keep checking the refrigerator and see what's going on. But I would not recommend that. Leave the door closed. One thing that I do feel confident, even though I'm not a food safety person, is put a thermometer in all of your refrigerators and all of your freezers. And if you know that your appliances are running in the correct range, then if the power goes out, when you do open it up when the power comes back on and you see what the temperature is, that can be a guide for you as well.
There are some foods that will just naturally last longer than others.
I would say so, but again, I'm going to defer to my food safety colleagues.
You mentioned the fact that we don't want to keep opening and shutting the refrigerator or the freezer because it really does make a huge difference in how long food will stay cold.
It can make a difference, yes. But again, if you are planning ahead and you're freezing water, you're getting the dry or the block ice, you're doing those kind of things, that can extend the time that the food will stay healthy.
What are some of the other things that we're going to be looking at throughout the month?
We are talking about keeping food safe in emergency. So some of the activities will include, again, if you don't have a thermometer in all of your refrigerator and freezer unit, and that includes things you might keep in the garage, in the basement, not just your main refrigerator or freezer. Foods to have on hand for building an emergency kit. Some other activities will be, we challenge you to go out and find out where to buy the dry ice or the block ice in your community. Take some time, focus on using up older emergency foods. So like we said, review your stock, rotate it out, buy fresh, use up the old before it expires perhaps, and then gather the items that you might need in an emergency. So we'll talk about what those would be. Then also, like we were talking about, safe food storage in the refrigerator and the freezer. We mentioned how to make a claim for lost food. Oh, and then we will have some information on the blog in week 4 about what to do if food comes into contact with floodwater.
Yeah, that's important because there are a lot of variables there as well.
Right. And particularly, so I guess just in general, we won't leave you hanging. It's always good if you keep food in the basement to keep it off the floor for sure. And depending, you probably know if your basement tends to get water. But I think what we're seeing lately is basements are flooding that never flooded before. So it's always a good idea to keep the food off the floor for sure. And then also reviewing hand washing safety. So that's another thing. We don't always think about that maybe in terms of preparedness. I mean, hand washing is always important. We're going into cold and flu season before too long. So we'll be talking about that as well.
Well, and even utensils and plates and things like that come into play too when we have the floods.
Right. That's exactly right. And so we'll have some information in week 4 about handling those kind of things that have been subjected to floodwater.
How does the blog work? You post things? Are you linking to articles? How does this all work?
Yeah, the blog it evolves every year, but we do post. We try to post about 2 to 3 times a week. The initial post tends to sort of introduce the topic and talk about what the challenges are, and then the subsequent posts that week talk more about the challenges and how you can do it, give further information. Sometimes in the past, and we'll probably do this again, we've tried to do some videos as well for people who prefer to sort of hear things so you can just click on it and listen as you're going about your day. It is an online challenge. There's no sign up. There's no necessarily reporting, although we love to have comments on the blog. And so if you find something useful or you have a question, appropriate comments are always welcome.
Yeah, well, blogs are really fascinating for that because you often do get some just kind of what I would call common sense type thing or something that they learn from someone else that just seems to work.
Right. So, yeah, we use hashtags. So if you're on Twitter or you're doing something on Facebook and you want to post, please use our hashtag #PrepareKansas. Prepare Kansas is the name of the blog, and usually what I do to find it is I just do K-State and then blogs Prepare Kansas. But probably if you just do blogs and Prepare Kansas, that would come up too if you're searching. But we do have links off of several places.
And as you mentioned, because you rotate the topics every year, a good opportunity to refresh. If you did this 3 years ago, it's probably time to take a look and make sure that you're doing the things you're supposed to be doing.
That's right. It was as I was walking over here today, I was thinking, this will finally be the motivation I need to clean out my refrigerator and get all that expired food out and just do those things. And yes, the thing about preparedness, any type of preparedness, whether it's financial preparedness, getting ready with your food, or understanding the hazards that we face in Kansas, is that continual review, refresh, adjustment.
And there is probably, I'm assuming, some links to some of the Prepare Kansases from the past. So if they want to look at the financial or some of the other information, they can find that too.
Right. We do have lots of links. And you did ask where we get the information. So for this month, for September 2019, we really do appreciate the expertise of our food safety colleagues. And USDA has food safety information. So we do, as we do with all extension information, we don't sell, and it is evidence-based.
Again, if people want more information, probably just a simple Google search?
I think so, yeah. That's probably the best way to find it right now.
That's K-State Research and Extension Family Resource Management Specialist Elizabeth Kish. To participate in this year's challenge, you can do an online search for Prepare Kansas or visit blogs.k-state.edu/preparekansas. Throughout September, the blog will have weekly postings and challenges. In addition, the blog has helpful links for making an emergency kit, developing a family communication plan, and food safety. If you have additional questions about preparing for disaster, contact your local county or district extension office. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman, and this is the K-State Radio Network.